Let me be perfectly honest with you here. This is going to be a very difficult video to do because myself and Gio have just finished recording our naked podcast over on Patreon, which is where we discuss things other than football. And we've just had a very, very long giggling fit, truth be known. We got into a confessional and basically our patrons started confessing some of their sins. We started confessing some of our sins, and we've just worked out that we might be doing sort of a new video, which is sort of basically doing a confessional, Hammers Chat confessionals with maybe with either forgiveness or condemnation at the end of it. I've even suggested I might actually buy a judge's wig. So please excuse us if we're in a jovial mood. It is also international break, as you will know. So we're always asking for ideas for content. And just a couple of days ago, we did a mug of tea, which is a podcast that we do over on our Patreon channel, patreon.com/Hammers Chat. Links in the description below. 7-day trial if you fancy it. We got some questions left over. And this video is to do with Tim Steidten, I believe, Gio.
Yeah, we've got 2 questions from subscribers rather than patrons, but I'll let you plug it anyway. So these are from YouTube subscribers. We've got one from Gary and one from Steve. You don't know what they are, so would you like...
They're subscribers called Gary and Steve.
You don't know what the questions entail, but they're both regarding Tim Steidten. Which one would you like to start with, Gary or Steve?
Well, I feel like I'd be preferring giving preference to either Gary or Steve. I don't want to reveal my hand at the moment, so you decide.
Right, well, we'll go Gary, alphabetical order. He says, and it's a long question, there's a long-winded comment, so stick with me here. Gary said, Ward-Prowse, Cruz, Alvarez and Phillips were club/David Moyes signings last season, Calvin Phillips being the only flop. Tim was responsible for Mavropanos. This summer window, Lopetegui wanted Kilman, Wan-Bissaka, Rodríguez, Soler, and an experienced third-choice goalkeeper, which was obviously Wes Fodringham. Tim Steidten was responsible for signing Guilherme, Todibo, Summerville, and Füllkrug. As well as Tim has done with the negotiations, has he had a better eye for a player when you compare his signings to the signings made by the first-team manager and head coach, who has worked under him in the previous 2 years? Discuss.
Gary, that's a bombshell. That's a bombshell. What a title this video is going to have. Is Steidten useless? Which is basically what you're asking, really. Well, firstly, we're never going to know. I do think you are basically accurate, but I do think there'll be one or two that are not. Like I'm not entirely convinced on Kudus was the case, but certainly I think you probably do have it right this season. And I would be lying if I said it hadn't crossed my mind. It has, particularly with Guilherme, and I certainly think Summerville's the case. Because what it actually means is, if you're right, okay, and if it was Füllkrug that was Steidten signing, if it was Guilherme, if it was Summerville, they're not in the team. And if we assume that the ones that Lopetegui signed are in the team, then we probably do have a very, very similar situation to what we had last season under David Moyes, albeit with probably slightly better players. I did wonder myself, but I sort of didn't want to do any mischief making. So I'm glad you've done it, really, Gary. I'm glad you brought it up, so you can take the blame for it, really. But yeah, I would like to think we have a little bit more joined up thinking than just that. But I do look at it for different reasons. I looked at Füllkrug and think, oh, hold on, is he going to benefit this system? Wasn't sure. Hence the reason I want to find out more and I want to view more. I did look at certainly at Summerville, who I want to see. I want to see more. I've made up my mind. I like his style of play. I like what he does. I want to see more. But I did look at it and think, oh, I'm not sure he's going to get in here. And then I look at Guilherme and think, yeah, that could be difficult. And that's one thing the one thing I definitely do know above all else is because the club openly came out and said it. Guilherme is 100% Steidten signing. So yeah, the fact he's got no minutes does make you wonder a little bit. I'll tell you what I worry about, Gary. Actually, I worry about what Steidten has said to Guilherme to make him sign, because Steidten can make a load of promises, but ultimately he could say you're part of the plans, you're part of the project, but you can't promise him a position in the team, can he? So he could have said a load of stuff. He could have schmoozed the hell out of him, gets over, and then Lopetegui just doesn't play him.
Yeah, I think it's too early to say in the team, not in the team. I think, we're only 4 games into the season, and Solar literally signed after the deadline for Man City, so it was impossible to see him in the side just yet. But it'll be interesting as the season goes on. I think Gary's got a spot on personally we'll never ever know. We'll never ever know. But I think he's got a spot on with who signed who. I don't think Kudus and Alvarez was a David Moyes signing. I think he was a Mark Noble identification, if you like. So I think that's why he said manager/club. And I'm inclined to agree with what Gary said there, that they were identified pre-Tim Steidten. Doesn't mean Tim Steidten didn't like them or want them. He might have come in and thought, yeah, actually, I want them as well. Brilliant, let's get them in. But I'm inclined to agree with Gary. In terms of sort of talent ID, it's gonna take time. It's going to take a lot of time though as well, especially with Tim Steidten's Guilherme, that it could be 2-3 years before you're really seeing if he was a good signing or not. It's going to take a while before we can evaluate that one, whereas some of the other ones are perhaps a little bit more ready today. Now let's judge some kind of thing. But I think there's more to it. Being a director of football or a version of a director of football, I think there's a lot more to it than simply identifying players. And as Gary's given him credit for, is the negotiation part of it. I would argue that that's just as important, possibly even more important, because it's all very well identifying a player, but you can't lure them to the club. Then almost what's the point of the first part? But to go and get these players and bring them to West Ham, I think is perhaps more impressive. And Steidten's job is, there's a lot of things he's got to do in overseeing the scouting department. Certainly one of them with his brother there, Maximilian Hans is there, and he should have players he really likes as well. But there is that negotiating part of it. So I don't think we can judge him purely on, are these players a success? Because actually the ones that are a success, let's say they were the Lopetegui ones, let's just say the biggest successes this summer were the ones that Gary and I and you, bar Kudus, but the ones that come in this summer, the biggest successes are Kilman and Wan-Bissaka.
Yeah.
Yes, credit, Lopetegui. Well done. You identified these players. Good. Well done. And this is where, whilst I think Alvarez and Kudus were club signings, I'll give Steidten some credit because he, A, agreed, B, had belief, and C, went and got them. So very well identifying a player, but could Mark Noble go to Ajax and do a deal with Ajax and then get Alvarez and Kudus come to West Ham? He might do. I don't know. We don't know. But I'll tell you what Tim Steidten did. So if a player works out like Kilman and Wan-Bissaka, well done Lopetegui for picking that player. Well done for Lopetegui for getting the best out of that player. But also in the middle of that, well done Tim Steidten for getting that player to West Ham. Because some of these transfers that we've seen this summer haven't been straightforward. Wan-Bissaka Man United was difficult. Kilman was easy enough, just expensive. Todibo was tricky for reasons we know. Summerville was pretty straightforward, but he and the club did incredibly well to keep that quiet for as long as months they kept that quiet.
Yeah.
So I'll give him credit for certain things, but also, listen, if he brings in certain players, Tim Steidten, and they don't work out, he's open to criticism in that regards as well. I think he's got to be. Everybody has to be open to credit and criticism as and when applicable. But in terms of, is the manager and head coach have they got better player identification than Tim Steidten? I'm going to say possibly / probably bordering on no. However, I think they have control over putting that signing in the team, and they have much bigger control over that signing, regardless of who brought it to West Ham United. They have much bigger control over that signing becoming a success. Whereas Tim Steidten, arguably, as soon as they arrive on that training pitch, it's out of Tim Steidten's hands, and it's over to A, the player, and B, those in charge of the player at West Ham. So that's how I see it.
Right, before we get on to Steve's question, let me just plug Surfshark just very, very quickly. If you're wondering why I'm plugging Surfshark, well, it's because bloody good, quite frankly. I got 2 main reasons why I particularly like Surfshark, and I have been using it for 3 years before they even came along and offered to start sponsoring our videos. So VPN, and VPN is something anybody and everybody really should be using if you're using the internet, be it on your laptop or your phone or whatever you're watching this on now, because if you subscribe and if you get yourself a Surfshark account, then you're going to be able to cover all your devices. Firstly, internet security. It basically stops people browsing at what you're doing. It may be something online that you're watching that you don't want anyone else to know about, right? But
like Hammer's chat.
Like Hammer's chat, yeah. Or it could be your banking details. You don't want anyone getting their hands on those, do you? Because all this stuff, it can be hacked. So that gives you a layer of protection there. The other thing that I noticed when I went away, I was lucky enough to go on holiday in May, went away to Norway, and my whole phone changed. I don't mean it changed colour and it got bigger or anything like that, but what was displayed on it changed. My favourite YouTube channels, that it was giving different suggestions. If you clicked on Google, I clicked on West Ham on Google. It gave me loads of Norwegian and German sites. I didn't know what the hell was going on. I looked at my browser and thought, I don't want this. What I want is my English version of Google. I want my English version of YouTube. I want all of this stuff. What it allowed me to do was change my geo, not him, location. So I was able to say, actually, I was a bit tricksy, to be honest. So I'm not really in Norway. I'm in England. Now, that you can imagine, I'll let you extrapolate the rest yourself. That can have other benefits if you're wanting to watch things, sporting events particularly. But anyway, the link is in the description below. We're going to give you, well, I do believe, Gio, is it a 30-day money-back free trial and got that right? 4 months free. The link is in the description below. Click that. If you click that, they'll know you've come from Hammer's Chat. They might sponsor us again in the future. But honestly, if you're watching this now, you use the internet. Use the internet. Get yourself a VPN.
Sign up. Don't like it. Full refund within 30 days. No questions asked. Simple as that. Would you like to know Steve's question?
I would now, yeah.
Steve said, with the economics and competition within the Premier League, how far can Tim realistically implement his plan? And could we ever do a Leverkusen?
I think, Steve, it's the only way. I think it's the only way that we can do anything. I would imagine there's a lot of people at Newcastle, both the fans, I know Staveley's gone now, but maybe even the people, the Saudi investment fund that took over, have probably been surprised at quite how quickly football has been aggressively regulated. There's no way that they bought that football club to do what's happened now. I'm gonna say the word, and it's a strong word, all right? Stagnate, all right? They bought that to go forward. I will never understand why the richest owners in football, the richest people that didn't go and buy Man United or Chelsea, or they were available Liverpool. They're even for sale. I don't know why they thought we're going to go and get this club for 300 million and then build it up. Turns out you can't. And I think that would have been a surprise to them, because that even though I thought it was a mistake at the time, that's still obviously what they wanted to do. There's no other way. It has to be Tim's way. I think it's like a glimmer of hope we got, even though Leverkusen pulled our pants down and smacked our bum last season. I still think they're to be admired. I still look at them and think, okay, that's the way. If West Ham are going to do it, that's the way. I think we've got a bit of a leg up on them, by the way, because we are, in terms of infrastructure, in terms of the size of the fan base, in terms of the size of the stadium, in terms of the revenue that we can bring in, we can afford to spend more than Leverkusen. So we've got a bit of more of a head start on them financially. I would imagine if you looked at the last 5 seasons, West Ham have spent considerably more than Simon Rolfs has had to spend at Leverkusen. So he's probably got a slightly bigger canvas to paint on, Tim Steidten. Whether he can do it, I don't know, but I do think it's the only way to do it, Steve. I don't think there's any other way that West Ham can do it, because we can't spend the money. Even if someone richer than the Saudis come in, we wouldn't be allowed to spend the money.
I think the advantage that we've got over Leverkusen, though, is quickly removed because of the Premier League. Although we're richer than Leverkusen, the team bottom of the Premier League is richer than the team bottom of the Bundesliga, and so on and so forth. Yeah. So I think it's more difficult. Yes, we can spend more money, but everybody else around us can also spend more money, and that removes the advantage. And this is why I'm intrigued as to what Steidten does long term, because he's got more money to spend than Leverkusen do. Leverkusen were looking, they're not against a big purchase, and they are, for the Bundesliga, Leverkusen are considered rich. They are richer than most of the teams in that league. Obviously, they're not Bayern Munich level.
Yep.
So can we do a Leverkusen? No. I don't think so, because to do a Leverkusen's win the Premier League. Don't see it. I can't see it, and it's nothing anti Steidten or anything like that. It's purely for the reasons Gonzo stated, which is the gulf between Manchester City and West Ham is significant. And you look at Arsenal and you look at Liverpool as to how close they've got to City over the years. Liverpool won the title once, and Arsenal haven't won it yet. And they've spent, some of them have spent hundreds of millions. Man United have spent hundreds of millions and got nowhere. And yes, it's bad decisions, but my point is, teams, it's not even just a monetary thing. You have to get everything right. And even when you do, like, I would argue, Arsenal have been quite impressive. I think Arteta's a good manager. I think they play good football. I think they've got good players. I think their signings generally have been quite good. Even then, they still haven't been able to win a title. You look at Liverpool, they got one of the record point hauls in the Premier League and finished second.
Yeah.
You know, Manchester City is just an absolute machine. The only way West Ham could do a Leverkusen is Manchester City get booted out of this league big time, and suddenly I say it levels the playing field. It doesn't, but the top team's gone. We're closer to Arsenal than we are Manchester City, I think, you know, and we're still quite some distance behind. But I don't think we can do it. And it's not to say that Tim Steidten's not good at his job or anything. It's purely because it's far too much. But I guess it's all relative. What would be West Ham doing Leverkusen outside the Premier League? Well, if you were to go on and win trophies plural while Tim Steidten was here, then that would be considered a massive success. So if you could win the Carabao Cup, win the FA Cup, win the Conference League again, win the Europa League, which, funnily enough, Leverkusen failed to do last season.
Yeah.
So get into the Champions League. That would be something that would be considered a huge success.
Yeah, for sure.
And I agree with Gonzo. This is the model. The one thing I still feel there's a lot of hesitancy about in regards to just reading comments on Amish Chat, both channels, Forum channel and the other channel. I still feel this reluctance in regards to selling a main player, and I understand it. However, we're talking about the Leverkusen model that involves selling big players. But, and this is where I think mentality is important, Leverkusen see it as a success to only sell one. In the summer, you only sell one and you pick which one. Or you pick 3 or 4 and say, they are not for sale. These 3 we're willing to do a deal on, but these ones you're not getting. So Wirtz, Boniface, hands off. But the other ones, we're willing to listen to offers. So the equivalent of West Ham would be going into next summer saying, right, Bowen's not for sale. Kudus isn't, forget release clause a second. Bowen's not for sale. Kudus isn't for sale. This player, that player, they're not for sale. However, we're willing to listen to offers for Paqueta, Füllkrug, and Alvarez, and Todibo. Now,
so you don't like Edson Alvarez?
Don't even start. But that is what Leverkusen do, and they see it as a success that they only sell one. Whereas I think sometimes we, as a fan base, collectively would see it as a failure that we've sold one, rather than see it as a success that we've only sold one. And I think we might have to get used to that. The only thing I'm intrigued by is the financial rules are changing. So PSR is completely changing. And I do wonder if that's why we've had a spend up this summer, because while it changes to the UEFA model, that's just done by your revenue is that you can spend 85% of your revenue on player signings, wages. Your turnover is a percentage of what you can spend on player recruitment. It's no longer got a 3-year rolling thing going on. So I do wonder if maybe we've found a bit of a loophole and had a bit of a spend up. I don't know. But with the change of financial rules, we're going to have different conversations in 12 months' time because the financial rules are different again.
Yeah, absolutely. Fun, isn't it? Gary, Steve, thank you very much for your questions. Let us know in the comments, by the way. Tim Steidten, the Messiah or a very, very naughty boy? And you heard it here first from Gio himself. Füllkrug is not going to work out and he wants to sell Edson Alvarez.